What makes a community go from being a nice to have to a must have? Well, I've got my guest today, Paul Schneider from Higher Logic. We're going to be talking about that, AI, grilling outside, and more. So stay tuned for the show. Kalisa, let's roll the opening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. You have tuned into Clocktower Advisors Talk About Your Community. I'm Todd, your host, and this is a special episode of Talk About Your Community. I've got with me here today Paul Schneider, who's the EVP of Corporate Markets and Partnerships at Higher Logic. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
I tried to put on my best podcast introduction because I know you're a podcaster yourself. So
I am an amateur podcaster. Yes, I am trying my best.
Everything about my operation is amateur except for my my showrunner, Kalisa, who is amazing. But I always say I've got a face for radio, but I'm too much of a ham to not turn on the camera.
I have a fantastic editor myself. It makes a world of difference.
So Paul, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know it's a busy season for Higher Logic, and you guys are having a good year so far, from what I hear. Would you talk to us a little bit about how you got into the community profession, the community world? If superheroes have their origin stories. Superman rocketed to Earth as a little infant. Peter Parker bitten on the hand by a radioactive spider. What was your radioactive spider moment?
Yeah, well, superhero is being very generous, but I started a PeopleSoft higher education software consulting company that literally was in business for 53 weeks, and we sold that in 1999. And part of that was working with a lot of higher education institutions. Right after that, we came up with this idea of, let's actually create a website where SQL reports can be shared, because we thought, gosh, all these higher ed institutions are writing all these SQL reports, and it might not be 100% of what another institution needs, but maybe 80%. And if we could create a marketplace for them to be able to come together and buy and barter the reports back and forth, well, that would be a nice business. And we were kind of moving down that path until PeopleSoft came back and said, "Great idea. If you do it, we'll sue you." So we said, okay, well, we should probably find a different path. And in talking with the higher ed institutions, it said, we have all these listservs, and they're great because we can communicate, via email, but there's no way to really store information on them. And we would really like a file library that goes with it. And we love to do surveys, and we kind of love to put this all into one tool. And so we said, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea, because the other one obviously isn't going anywhere. And so that's really what happened, and what was the impetus of Socious. And then the Higher Education Users Group, which was PeopleSoft Higher Education Users, was our very first customer. And it really just took off from there. But that was really how we started. We kind of stumbled into it. We weren't really planning on doing that, but it turned out all right.
A common theme. We're called to adventure by an accidental moment. Really cool. And wow, listservs. That goes back to the deep magic of the internet at its very foundation. So great that you were able to modernize them and pull them into a more of a community experience. Really cool. Thanks for sharing that. So then, what led you to where you are today with Higher Logic? Briefly, of course, we've only got time for the stream, but what brought you into this particular platform, which is one of the leading community platforms for enterprise that's out there?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so we really started off with associations. That's where Socious started. Certainly Higher Logic started there. And then in 2016, 2017, private equity came into that market and just started buying everybody up, as you know. And Higher Logic got a private equity backer in JMI, and they came in and bought us. And we were kind of the number two competitor in that space. And we had started to do some corporate work And really, we had IBM and Citrix and VMware. Like we started to, really build a good corporate practice. And so HireLogic bought us. And then for the first year, I was there working with our customers and transitioning some over to HireLogic, but then really building that corporate team for HireLogic. So that's what brought me over.
Very interesting. Well, so I think then the work that you do today around corporate markets and partnerships, could you give people a little bit of a thumbnail about what your day-to-day looks like?
Well, so my day-to-day is really, I run a sales team and really it's revenue growth. So, we do it internally and organically through going after and working with customers, but then also building very strategic partnerships, whether they be a system integrator or a complementary software package that we can integrate with to bring more value to our customers. So however I can mix those two together and bring revenue to the organization and value to our customers, that's my job.
Amazing. Well, I know we've known each other for I think at least a couple of years now, and I've really valued the connection and sort of being able to get a track of what's going on with HireLogic and sort of what you're the work you're doing both with associations and increasingly with enterprises and other kinds of organizations. I'd really like to dig in today to your take on sort of what's happening in the community marketplace. I think that it's no shocker for you to hear. We live in volatile times with a lot of uncertainty. We've been through a pandemic and a lot of economic, political, global instability. And I think it's absolutely had an impact on community professionals and their jobs and the platforms that serve up communities. Could you maybe give me a little bit of an overview of sort of what you've seen over the past few years and maybe what you think is on the books for going forward? And that'll be a launching point probably for a lot of different discussion points.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think like everybody, as we went through COVID, it was a natural reason to start looking at communities because we can't be together and certainly events weren't happening. And so a community was a tremendous way to be able to bring your customers together, continue to communicate with them. So we actually did really, really well during the COVID years. And then after that, it's like, oh, okay, we're bringing people back together and boy, those communities, that they're a lot of work. And so then you start to see things kind of in a little bit of a downturn, but I'm now seeing things come back and come back quite a bit. And I think the companies that are surviving and thriving are the ones that are really focusing on outcomes. So, the big word is, we want our customers engaged. Well, why? What are we engaging them for? What is that end game that we're ultimately trying to achieve? Whether it be, a case deflection or retention or advocacy, whatever those things might be. Those companies that are truly focusing on that now, they're the ones that are starting to grow. And companies are getting smarter in the sense that, communities have always been a bit of a nice to have. As much as we want to say, they're you got to have a community. They haven't necessarily been a got to have. I see now, and I know we'll probably wind up talking about AI because AI is in every conversation. I see now how community can start to become a got to have. And I think that's where companies really are starting to look. Companies are always looking at their budget. They're always looking at the bottom line. And so you have to justify your existence. And I think companies are open to community. They're very interested in community, but it has to drive those outcomes that ultimately people are looking for. So that seems to be the big focus is show me how you're going to get me the outcomes. Then I'll sign with you.
Yeah. I mean, you're singing out of my hymn book, for that. I mean, I think having communities attached to outcomes is critical to their success. And the reasons that I think executives, when they do look at community as a nice to have, or their eyes glaze over when they start thinking about it, because it's an abstraction to them. It's unclear. Like broccoli, I know it's good for me to eat it, but I don't necessarily like it. And so for an executive to see what it is beyond sort of the sense of like, yeah, it's really good for us to be community minded because who the heck doesn't like community?
Right.
But how's it paying my bills? How how's it saving us money? How's it giving us better product ideas? How's it, how's it driving adoption and monetization and renewals and loyalty and all the things down the line that cascade from a well-run community. If those things are not made explicit, it's a problem.
Right.
For the future of that, for the community, of that platform, of the people that are running the community, and I think that's what we saw after the pandemic, where organizations rushed in to build these communities, and as you said, they realized how much hard work it was going to be.
Yeah,
and then pulled a Monty Python, run away.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Monty Python. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, 100%. It's been a very interesting road, and I always say that building a community is part art and part science. The science is the software, and that's easy. You can go buy software, but it's not a CRM. You put information in, it just does what you do, and you get your reports, and hey, everything good. I mean, there is an art to growing a community, as you well know. And so I think once companies really got a handle on, we truly need those people that can understand that piece of it. That's where the rubber met the road. Okay, how much do we really want to invest in this? But again, now I think even companies like ours are starting to understand the fact that, well, we have to help these customers actually understand that art and that science. Like I'll talk, us specifically, is a lot of times we hope that a customer comes in with a strategy. Many times they know, well, I want to get to the top of that mountain. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but get me to the top of that mountain. Well, we want them to come in with the strategy of how they're going to, go to this level and then that level and that level. Well, they don't typically have that. So we now have said, okay, let's understand that they don't have that. Let's give that to them. And so during the implementation, we help them get set up from a strategic perspective. Yes, from a technical perspective, but let's understand the strategy. You want to get to that mountain. Well, let's walk you through the steps of that. And let's make sure we're all on the same page in regards to that. So we're helping you with that art piece on the setup of it, and then the science of it, of the technology, and getting it set up the right way. But then and that's great. But then usually it would be, well, okay, good luck, and we hope you have a great time, and I hope you get to your goals. Where now we say, we can't just give a customer a normal CSM either. Again, community is very different. Yes, you can flip this switch, or you can turn that dial, but why would you do that? And so now we started to implement community managers as our CSMs, so that you can say, well, what, we're trying to get to the top of that mountain, but we're a little bit off course. Okay, well, so your CSM will know why you're off course. They'll have seen that happen many, many times because they've lived that life. And now, they can actually get you back on course simply because they know exactly what they're doing. They're the trail guides, so to speak. So now we're starting to look at how do we wrap our arms around a customer holistically, so that, even if they don't have the amount of people that are going to be able to do the art piece of the art and the science, we'll still be able to get them to that goals, because we're going to wrap our arms around everything to make them successful.
That's a really great orientation. And I think that, a lot of the platform providers, at least more of the enterprise, grade ones, have customer service or customer success managers, as they call them, PSMs. But my sense is that many of them are not able to do more than say, oh, I'll take that back to my team and I'll get back to you with an answer, as opposed to having been there and done that, having had the expertise and the bruises to show for it, for running a community, and the kudos as well. Yeah. And I think having that level of expertise available to ensure the success of a customer is that's a great end goal to have in sight. And you're right. I mean, I think that is something that then ensures the longevity of that platform, within a given company. Like that ensures a level of loyalty, because you're providing them with guidance and you're giving them feedback, and ideally that CSM understands the platform as well as the art of community management, in place.
100%.
And then if it gets beyond that, then they need a guy like me, that does the consulting side of it, where they're looking for more nuanced help, to be successful over time.
Absolutely.
Really cool. So I think one of the questions that I had for you around that was, the what you're seeing is the sophistication level of your buyers now, like as we're sort of looking at the marketplace, enterprise Fortune 1000 company approaches you about starting a community. I'm kind of curious, how sophisticated are they? Are you finding, is it more or less than it was maybe 10 years ago as you're kind of looking at the market? And by that sophistication, I mean, do they have people from multiple departments in the organization that are maybe involved with that buying process? Or is it often just sort of like a key champion from the executive team that's driving the purchase? And I'm sure there's like not a one size fits all answer, but I like, in terms of trending and sort of like what you're seeing, where do you see us these days?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was, hey, we're looking for a community for support, or there was typically one use case. Now, I think and we just looked at this, I think there's 2 to 3 use cases per community on average these days. And again, where they used to be driven more by the customer success, customer support, now they're being driven by marketing. And yes, customer support, customer success are in there. But it's interesting how the ownership has changed a little bit, from more of that customer success side to the marketing side. And, they all have to work together, because I think it's a little hard to be able to create an advocate community where we just ask you to do stuff, just do stuff for us. Well, if you're not getting value as a customer, why are you going to come back? Why are you going to keep, and so if you can build a strong community on customer support, customer success, giving the customer the value that they ultimately want, and you get them coming back because they are getting value, now you can start asking them for things. And so we really are seeing more of a holistic approach to community. We see more directors of community. The community, it's not just a community manager. The level of the people that are running the community are higher. I've yet to see like a chief community officer, but they're getting up there, which is great because they have more power, they have more budget, and they are coordinating with their peers across different departments a lot more. And I think the more you can get a community, and I mean, just from our perspective, the more you can get a community entrenched with an organization, typically the more successful they're going to be. They get their goals, they'll stay a customer longer. So we love this trend because it makes sense for the customer, and it makes sense to help them get to their goals a lot easier.
That's really good to hear. And just as an aside on the chief community officer question, my sense is there are people that are kind of, they've got that role, but they don't have that title, and they have that level of influence within the organization, but there may be a director of community, maybe a head of community. I think that it's one of those cases where a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. But I think like for that title in particular, I think it does have currency, but I'm thinking we're maybe 5 to 10 years out from it, because what I'm seeing now is a lot of startup companies will hire fractional executive roles. That fractional chief community officer is a thing, because those companies are choosing to go to market as a community. That's like a central part of what their go-to-market is. And they need somebody like that has that seat at the leadership table and understands what it is to be a community builder, not just within a platform, but like overall with your customer base. Like, how do you build that sense of belonging among the people that are fans and followers of whatever your brand or service happens to be?
Yeah, and it's interesting because for the older school companies, community was you build your company and then you build a community. But with more of the startups that we've seen, and maybe just because younger people and they're social, on social sites more often, they build the company with social. So let's get our people, with the community first, versus making it an afterthought after we've built the company, which has been an interesting trend to kind of see happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think part of it is connected to maybe gaming culture, where it's a matter of expectation that there's a Discord server for you somewhere to join, and sort of that sense of, even in very large Discords, that sense of intimacy or connection to the other people because of those strong interests in a platform that's kind of its own little walled city of experience. Like, they want that as they're building their brands, as well as those people are growing up and not outgrowing gaming, because I'm a big gamer myself and never planning to grow up. But I think that there's a I think a greater willingness to embrace those more private community experiences rather than worrying about the increasingly perilous world of big social platforms that are out there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of companies too, and we're seeing a trend just along those lines too. Probably 5 years ago, a lot of companies are like, you know what, my users are on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we need to be, and so a lot of them went there, and or Slack or whatever, and then they realize, oh, I have no control. I don't own that data. I really can't tell much about the people that are my customers. Well, maybe I do move to an asset that I control, that I own. And so that is a trend now as well that we're starting to see, which has been great. I think the two work very, very well together. But Facebook it's a community that Facebook owns. It's not a community that you can really do a lot with if you truly want to cultivate a close relationship with your customers. And so they each have their purpose, but it's a nice trend to start seeing.
Yeah, 100%. I'll often characterize trying to build a community on Facebook or X or wherever, kind of like trying to build your knitting circle in the middle of a carnival ground. Like you're just surrounded by distractions. And how can you create a sense of safety or connection among those individuals? How can you talk about this area of interest of yours without somebody piping in and trolling you? At the same time, like we need these not walled spaces, but maybe semi-permeable, virtual spaces, like we're building that aren't big open social, and that enable deeper, higher quality conversations, to occur in those spaces. Not to say those things can't happen in big social platforms. They're just not built for it.
Right. Well, it's a tremendous way to be able to drive people to your closed community. So as great things are happening in your community, post them on social but drive the people back to your community to be able to participate. That is where I really see the two working very, very well together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great broadcast medium, great place to get the word out and get people excited about what you're doing, and then invite them into the house and cook them dinner. And, that's what we do in the communities we build. Really, really great insights, Paul. So tell me a little bit about how Higher Logic is doing right now. You've got the Thrive platform and the Vanilla platform, and you've been kind of going to market with both of those, which may be a question mark, for some people. Like what is that? What is the world of Higher Logic looking like for you, here in 2025?
Sure. Well, I mean, from a dual platform perspective, the reality is that we now have double the opportunity to make a customer successful. So what we do is we sit down, we understand the organization's goals, we understand the organization's needs, and then we basically prescribe the right solution for them. Each one is fantastic in its own right. Each one is a dominant, market share and great, big organizations that are using it. It's just a different flavor of community. Where Thrive, which has historically been maybe more of an association side, if you're looking to drive communities of practice, partner communities, you're looking to drive a constant engagement. Okay, Thrive could be a solution there. Whereas there's some other use cases that Vanilla is exceptionally good at. And not to say that they don't cross a little bit. But the reality is that from a customer's perspective, we have double the opportunity to make them successful. So we're excited about that. And it's actually this is our first quarter that we're going to market, and it's proven to be exceptionally well, or go very well. I think probably one of the best things that's happened here at Higher Logic is Rob Wenger, our founder, came back, founder and CEO, as our chief product officer, because we are now amazingly innovative with some of the things that we're looking to do moving forward and that we've started to build. That's what gets me excited. And it is some of those things. We talked a little bit earlier about, how do you turn a community from a nice to have to a gotta have? He's very interested in how do we ultimately make that happen. And he's a guy that's lived community for decades, same like me. Like that's what we do. It's what we love. And just having somebody like that at the helm of the organization there's just a new life within Higher Logic that is great to see.
That's really incredible to hear. So innovation, man, dish a little bit. What are you guys working on? What can you share with me?
Well, I mean, I think AI is clearly, what everybody's talking about. We just created a new relationship with IBM, and if you go out to the IBM communities, you'll see our new RagBot that we built. It's built on Watson. So it's a great opportunity for us as an organization to tap into what IBM has to offer, the research. I mean, Watson has been out there for years and a very strong AI model, and their Granite LLM is, well tested. And so the ability for our company to be able to tie into that is fantastic. And so you'll start seeing some exciting things coming out from that partnership. But also and Rob is really big on AI and how we integrate it into the organization and integrate it into the product. And some of the exciting things that I'm looking at is, the ability to be able to take the community information and marry it with other information like CRM information or information from your CSP, and then have an engine that can take all that and give you ideas or signals as to what's coming. This customer is likely to churn based upon things that we've seen in the past, but the AI can tell you that. Or this customer is looking to buy, or probably is a good opportunity for you to upsell them because of things that they're doing. But the problem with community has always been is we're part of the story. Mm-hmm. The ability for if we could take the community and pull in all the information where now we can give you the whole story based upon your entire tech stack. Now we turn the community from a nice to have into a gotta have. That's what I'm super excited about.
I mean, I think that layering of that data, that's a holy grail. I mean, that's something like back in 2013 when I was working with 7 Summits that we were trying to do for customers to try to turn what are lagging analytics, lagging indicators to predictive analytics. Like, how can we tell how we're doing? Like what you just described there, how do we know if a customer is going to be likely to churn? How likely is it this person's going to renew? That kind of stuff is invaluable, to the company.
And it's not something that you've necessarily talked about when talking about a community. It's been other systems, but community plays such a valuable piece as to giving sentiment and participation or not participation. And what does that mean when you marry it with CRM data and other data, and then an AI in the middle to be able to understand what that ultimately means? Community's never been in that conversation, or at least not very strongly. Where now we're building some things that community is going to be smack dab in the center of that. And it's going to turn it, like I said, from a nice to have into a gotta have.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Is it a partnership with IBM that you're working with?
Yep, partnership with IBM. Yep.
That's amazing. So with a lot of the AI efforts that I'm looking at with other community platforms that are out there, they're pairing with something like ChatGPT or Claude, or one of the commercial LLM models that are out there. I'm wondering, are you finding an easier time going to market with IBM because they're already trusted in the enterprise as a solution, as opposed to like with, you got to love the innovation that's happening in the space with things like ChatGPT. But if I'm entering something into ChatGPT, I don't know if someone on the other end of OpenAI is taking my ideas, or like
all the more reason we're not necessarily using all the models that are out there. We're not exclusively on IBM. We are using other models, but being very cognizant of exactly what you're talking about. The other thing is just from a hallucination perspective, or just the validity of the data that you're getting back. We actually Rob did a presentation at Tech Exchange in front of their folks there. And he asked a question of the AI, and the AI actually said, "I don't have an answer for you," which is exactly what you want. Because you don't want it to say, well, you can go do this, and then you go do that. You're like, wow, that was not right at all. And then you lose, all trust in that, in that community. So the governance that you can put on IBM and Watson is fantastic. So yeah, that's not the only model we're using, but it does certainly lend some great opportunities to us as we use that as well as some others.
Well, and I think this gets at one of the things that I think differentiates the enterprise market for community platforms from all the others, that are out there. I think as much as, there are, community platforms that sprang up even around like 2016, 2017, and were, had the chance to thrive a little bit during the pandemic. They're more startup organizations, maybe they're VC backed, but they're not really enterprise grade, because they're not looking at the same level of compliance or security or thoughtfulness about privacy, in the enterprise, that a Higher Logic is, or some of your competitors, that are out there as well. And I mean, I think that's still an edge in the marketplace. Organizations need to know that they've got a relatively safe platform to work in, that actually does look at security, that has secure data servers, that has backup plans, and uptime and service level agreements. Those things are not optionals for an enterprise when they're making a decision about this.
Yep. No, absolutely. And the last thing I just wanted to add to this, which was a tremendous, because I believe AI is a fantastic tool. I think, though, that nothing will take the place of human interaction. So what I didn't finish in that story is when Rob asked the question of, and there was no, I don't have an answer. There's actually a button in our AI ragbot that says, well, then you want to ask your fellow humans. So then you can go out and you can ask a question directly in the community, which that to me is a great melding of AI and the human genius that's out there, because an LLM is only good from today backwards, where, if it doesn't have the answer, great, well, tell me that you don't have the answer, because I have this tremendous other resource of human beings that I can tap into. And that's the beauty of merging the AI and the communities together.
That's a really visionary approach. I definitely appreciate that. Really cool. So I guess looking forward, what are you excited about with community platforms? Like what's 2025 hold for Higher Logic in your best possible future that you can imagine?
Well, a lot of it we already spoke about. I think the innovation that's coming here at Higher Logic, I'm extremely excited about, because it's really, from a salesperson's perspective, the best thing you can have is a product that sells itself. And we're getting to the point where it just makes so much sense when you start looking at a community, when it can help you reach your goals, whatever ROI it is. It'll not only make sure that you're on the way to get there, but it'll predict ways that it can help you get there. I mean, that's visionary stuff that has just never been talked about when you're talking about community, or when you're working with an organization to try and sell the benefits of community. Didn't have that available to us. So that's extremely exciting. I think it's also extremely exciting, at least from our perspective, when we go and we talk to a customer that, they have to get outcomes. And this is somebody's job on the line, if they decide they want to bring you on as their platform provider, that we can wrap our arms around everything in which they ultimately need, both from the art and science that we talked about, to make sure that they ultimately hit their goals. And we've implemented a lot of these things, and we're starting to see them work. And that's probably the most exciting thing that gets me excited, when you have an idea and you give it a try and you're like, oh, wow, this is working. This is great. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also excited to see how AI really, what it becomes within community. You talk with some people and they're like, I don't need community. AI is going to take care of that. Yes, I mean, it'll take care of a lot of the answering the right question, but it doesn't give any of the contextual answer. It doesn't give any of the color around, yes, that's the right answer, but if you also did this, this, and this. And how do we merge community and AI together to be able to get a customer to where they need to be in a more efficient way and in a better way? That's what excites me. I think we're on just the cusp of understanding how we're going to do all this. And, I think by the end of the year, I mean, things are obviously moving rapidly. I think by the end of the year, we're going to have a much better idea as to where we're going to fit. And I'm excited to see where it lands.
I am too. I think that what I'm excited about with your answer there is we're trying to answer that question for community plus AI in the ways that I think the broader society is trying to answer that question of, like, what's for humans and what's for AI? What are these two things good at? And it's not an either or question.
Yes.
It's a both and
Yes.
question. And it's humans are good at some of these things, but we find some of these other things really tedious and difficult to do. But AI is really good at some of those things. And we're sort of in this process of sort of negotiating it. I've heard it termed a jagged frontier,
Mhm.
where it's not clear, but we're figuring out, like we're coming closer together to figuring out where these things come together and fit with each other. And for community, that, the example that you gave of Watson not knowing or Granite not knowing the answer to the question and then asking, would you like to ask your humans about this? That's awesome. That's connecting the two in a very meaningful, vivid way that I haven't heard before. So very, very nice. So Paul, what do you do to relax when you're not doing community building stuff?
For many, many years, I've decided that I need a hobby. And I can't say that I have one, but I do love to cook. So I am a big fan of, I like to grill. I like to sous vide. I'm not much of a baker, although I do make an amazing soft German pretzel. I will say that. Nice. But yeah, I like to cook. I love spending time with my family. Love to get to the gym if I can, a few times a week and do that. And I live in Phoenix. I grew up in Wisconsin, where the weather wasn't all that great. And now I live in Phoenix. Yeah. That's right. We're Wisconsinites. So to be in great weather, I like to get outside and just enjoy that as well, because it's a great place to live.
That's amazing, man. Next time I'm down in Arizona, we're going to grill out. That's
I would love to. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll do it.
So we've been with Paul Schneider, EVP of Corporate Markets and Partnerships at Higher Logic. We've had a fantastic, far-ranging discussion around where community has come from, where it's gone to up here till 2025, and sort of what the future looks like in terms of development, platforms, features, and the art of community. Paul, thanks so much for joining today. Anything you want to plug before we say goodbye for the day here?
Well, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're going to be at a lot of different conferences coming up. We'd love to have you come and see us. We'll be at the Zendesk Relate conference in Vegas next week, the end of March, and then we'll be at Forrester, and then we'll be at TSIA in Orlando. If anybody happens to be there, I will be at all three. Please stop by the booth. We'd love to say hi and talk about what project you might have going on.
Paul, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you for tuning in to watch this special episode of Talk About Your Community. You can always catch replays for our show on our YouTube channel for Clocktower Advisors, as well as on the LinkedIn company page for Clocktower Advisors. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take some time off, get away from the screen, get outdoors, enjoy a little bit of sun on your face, grill out, and we will see you back here in a week or two with a live stream. And until then, keep building great communities. I'm going to peace out here. Paul, thanks again. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.